Hi, this is Abby Zerline. I am the Family Engagement Coordinator for the Illinois DeafBlind Project. I am very pleased to have Jeanine and Dave here from Protected Tomorrows for our future care planning webinar. We will have a pre and post poll just to measure change of knowledge after the webinar. So we'll launch that in just a minute. Thank you. And now we'll turn it over to Dave to do Jeanine's introduction. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks. Well, thanks, Abby and Michelle, for having us. We're really happy to be here. Real quick, my name is Dave Breen. I'm a National Partnerships Coordinator at Protected Tomorrows and have spent the last 39 years in the disability community, mostly with Special Olympics. And it's my honor to introduce you to the star of the show tonight, Jeanine Geraci. She joined Protected Tomorrows in 2021 as the National Special Needs Services Coordinator. Jeanine brings 17 years of experience in the disability community with a background in psychology, social work, mental health, and family and child services. She may be talking a little bit about where her passion stems from, but I can tell you it's very much attached to the audience that we're in front of tonight. And it's truly great to have Jeanine. I've worked with Jeanine for about a year, and I can tell you there's nobody that works harder, more passionate, or more knowledgeable. We were just at a lunch today trying to help some family members with a very tough, tough subject matter with one of their children. And Jeanine provided a lot of solutions that they hadn't thought of. So I will turn it over to Jeanine, but she is the best of the best. So
Well, thank you, Dave. That's very humbling, and I could say a million nice things about him as well. So, um, well, let's get started. I'm going to share my screen so you can see the presentation, hopefully. And, well, all right. Can everyone see that okay? Yeah. Okay, great. All right. So this is bringing you Protected Tomorrows, Government Benefits and ABLE. As Dave mentioned, I'm Jeanine Geraci. I'm a partner and the National Special Needs Coordinator for Protected Tomorrows. Those are really just titles. But Protected Tomorrows, our organization is compassionate. We are committed to providing advocacy and solutions and financial advisory. We are certainly dedicated to supporting families of individuals with disabilities of all kinds. And so that's what Protected Tomorrows is at their core. But really, what we're trying to do is we're trying to champion dignity, security, for a fulfilling future, because isn't that what we all want? We want to feel happy, feel safe, and hopefully healthy if that's on the table. So, and we want to do that for all individuals. Protected Tomorrows is made up of a team of lots of professionals, both financial and special needs related. And you can see here's pictures of all of us with our loved ones with disabilities or the community that we have served. I personally am connected to this incredible group by having a cousin who is blind, and she went blind when she was about 15 due to a genetic anomaly. And so she's part of the reason why I do what I do, but also why I'm connected to this community of Illinois Deaf-Blind Project. And furthermore, I've worked in the disability community alongside some amazing people and working in all different kinds of facets, and there's nothing else I'd rather do. And that's why I'm here. So this is our team. Our team is extremely special, and they all bring something a little bit different to the table: life experiences, education, professional, pathways and things like that. And so that's what's special about Protected Tomorrows. It's not your average financial planning firm or really even special needs firm. So at Protected Tomorrows, our mission is your mission. And so really what that means is just to help enhance the lives of individuals with disabilities. We have an 8-step planning process that we use to help families map out and plan for the future. And so tonight we're going to talk about a couple of these steps. Mostly we're going to be focusing on number 4, which is capturing potential benefits from the government, and then number 7, which is funding the future. But all 8 steps are important. This process works whether you have a family member with a disability or not, or you are the person with the disability. And it's not always going in order, right? We don't always go from 1, 2, 3, et cetera. Sometimes we bounce from 1 to 5 to 7 to back to 2, back to 1. And the point is, we developed this to help families and individuals gain some control and not feel so overwhelmed by the process of planning for a future that you may not know what life is going to look like in the next 6 months, year, 10 years, 30 years. So it's helping you to take bite-sized pieces of what can feel very consuming and overwhelming. Protect Tomorrows has a new website. It's gotten a couple facelifts over the last couple of years. We've kind of settled on this one. I think it looks pretty good. There's a lot of free resources on our website. Our website absolutely has accessibility features. So whatever you need, this little man down in the right-hand corner is the sign for the accessibility features, and there's a plethora of them. So if for any reason you're trying to navigate our website and you're not finding a feature that would be useful for you, please let us know because all feedback is really important to us. So my goal today is just to create awareness and provide some education so that you can take action on the next steps for your own planning. I always start off by asking everyone to just think about it. If you have a piece of paper, most likely you have your phone in front of you. You might, speak into your phone or jot down on your phone, or if you do have a piece of paper, great. And write down when you think about it, if it's either for yourself or for a family member, what's the best thing that can happen for your family or your family member's future? Um, I'll tell you what the most common answers are in a second. But on the flip of that, what is your biggest fear, either for yourself or for your loved one, when thinking about planning for the future? So if you take as much time as you need, you might have to think about it while I speak throughout the rest of the evening. But the most common answers that we receive are that the best thing that can happen is that they feel happy, healthy, and safe. Happy and safe being the top two. And that's such a broad definition because what makes me happy and what makes me safe or what makes me feel safe is maybe not the same as it is for all of you or for Dave or Abby or Michelle or anybody. It's all individualized. But that's what we hear most commonly, or they'd like their loved one to be independent. But again, independence looks totally different for everybody. Whether that's with support or a level of support that you need or no supports. So, and then the biggest fear that we hear from family members is that two things. One, their loved one or themselves, they'll be taken advantage of, whether that's financially, emotionally, uh, what have you. That there's a real fear around that, especially with our vulnerable population. And also, a lot of times, what I hear from parents is that their biggest fear is that something's going to happen to them before they've done this planning or before they've secured these benefits. And that's a real fear. So we're going to try and take away or at least mitigate some of that fear by providing some education this evening to help you take next steps. So we get this question a lot. How much money will you need for your family member or yourself with special needs? And it's a really hard question to answer because the answer is going to be different for everyone because it's based on your need. But what we do know is that it's a lot. right? But what is a lot, you know? So when we think about creating a vision of planning for the future and setting money aside or being prepared, we have to think about all the things that we need to secure, like a living arrangement, medical care, comprehensive medical care at that, education options, recreation, socialization, faith-based options. So all the things on the right side of this diagram, I'm just listing them off verbally, but those are the things we're trying to solve for, plan for. And then how do we fund those things? So the pyramid on the left-hand side, the bottom or the base of our pyramid is benefits because the government, despite your feelings about the government currently or in the past or in the future, it's a large source for access as well as funding. And so it's the basis of our pyramid because most of our population is depending on public aid or government benefits in some way. And then there are savings, there's insurance and protection options. Family members might be contributing to accounts for future care, work, of course, employment. And then there's other factors that we have to think about. So when we create the vision, we're solving for things that make life go round and comfortable and happy and safe. And then what are the funding sources that we need in order to make that vision come to life? So let's talk about benefits. So, our government benefits circle is what I'm going to describe to you. So, on the top half of our circle, we talk about entitlement benefits. And because this isn't specifically a benefits class, I'm not going to go too in depth with it. But what I want you to know about government benefit programs as it relates to tonight's discussion is that on the top half of our circle, we have entitlement. Well, entitlement really just means that you're entitled to these benefits because you have either paid into the Social Security Administration by working, or a parent has worked and paid into the system, which then turns around and offers cash benefits either through Social Security disability insurance, that would be on your own record, or disabled adult child benefits which would be a child collecting off of a parent once they've started to collect. I'm going to scooch over to the right hand of our circle, and that is Medicare, which is a health insurance program that goes along with Social Security disability and disabled adult child benefits. Medicare is not just for individuals who are 65 and older. It is a health insurance program that's offered to the individuals who are approved for the benefits like SSDI or DAC. And so we move to the bottom half of the circle because, again, a large portion of our population either hasn't worked or hasn't worked enough to have enough credits or quarters in order to access Social Security disability insurance on their own record. And perhaps their parent hasn't started collecting their own retirement yet. And so when they turn 18 or when you turn 18 and you're in need, so you see the bottom half of the circle, it's needs-based benefits. You're in need because you are an individual with a disability who has barriers to income. And the barriers to income are that you cannot work. So you have to prove not only that you're medically disabled, but that you are unable to work or work enough to support yourself long term. And so what comes of that is SSI or supplemental security income. I hear so frequently from families telling me, well, my child's on Social Security disability. And then I have to ask a series of questions to try and figure out if that's actually what they mean or do they mean SSI, because they're two very different buckets of money. SSI in particular, it only pays out a maximum of $994 a month. Okay, and that is the 2026 rate. And that it gets adjusted with cost of living adjustments and things. But the bottom line is that's the most that a person who is on SSI can receive from the federal government when they're per month, $994 a month. If you're on a benefit, actually Social Security disability insurance, your benefit could be a lot higher because it's based on your own work record. And particularly if you're on disabled adult child benefits or even survivor's benefits, if you had a parent pass away, the benefit again is much higher than 994 typically because it's based on a parent paying in for their, 10 years or more. And so the benefit is much higher. And then uh, down on the bottom with needs based, there's Medicaid. And Medicaid is so much more than a health insurance system. Medicaid provides access. And so, what's interesting about that is that you have to be Medicaid eligible in order to access waivers. And waivers are access. They're access to services, they're access to programs, they're access to supports, potentially residential, personal support workers. All of that hangs in the balance of what Medicaid has to offer. And Medicaid has very strict income and asset rules. So, for asset limits for Medicaid and for SSI, the individual should not have more than $2,000 in their name at any given point. That's not a whole lot of money. And furthermore, uh, you know, it makes it difficult because these programs are intended to keep you destitute. They're intended to keep our population poor, because we are saying that we are in need of these long-term benefits that the government's going to provide to us. So that's why they have these rules around it. For the population of deaf blind, the income limit is a little bit different than individuals who would be deemed intellectually or developmentally disabled. So the income limit per Social Security is $2,830 a month. It's a higher income threshold than it is for a different type of disability, whether that's physical, mental, like I said, intellectual. And so those are the basic rules around our government benefit programs. So I just wanted to kind of walk you through that, some of the thresholds, some things to keep in mind. And I'll take any questions at the end if you have further questions about these particular programs. But let's kind of sail through to the next part. So when we're thinking about Medicaid in particular, a lot of us use the phrase Medicaid, me in particular, especially when I'm talking about benefits as it pertains to Illinois, right? It's like, oh, well, that's part of Medicaid. And really, that's accurate, but more so, it's the Illinois Department of Human Services. They're the big umbrella, right? So, Illinois Department of Human Services, or IDHS, oversees multiple departments. And those departments establish eligibility, they provide service, they administer the funding. And like I said before, all the programs we're going to kind of talk about now they require Medicaid eligibility. So when we talk about eligibility, remember you have to be considered a disabled individual and you have to have assets and resources below $2,000. Illinois has a little bit of a special rule surrounding that. I will get to that in a moment, but here's what you need to know. Medicaid itself provides health coverage for Illinois residents who meet these eligibility criteria that I just mentioned. And they provide services and supports by waiving the cost to the resident. So when we talk about waivers, it doesn't cost anything for the individual with the disability to be on a waiver because they're in need, remember? But it waives the cost to them for service and for access. So eligibility requirements are as follows. You need to be a U.S. citizen or a lawful permanent resident for at least 5 years. The financial eligibility is that your earned/unearned income total is less than $1,690 per month, and that you have assets totaling less than $2,000. The disability eligibility. So you don't have to be on Social Security in order to access Medicaid. That is a common misconception. You just have to meet the Social Security Administration's definition of disability. And their definition of disability means that it's permanent. And what they mean by permanent is that it's going to last 12 months or longer. So it's continuous, it's considered long term. And so that's Social Security Administration's definition of disability, that you have a permanent, have become or are permanently disabled. So when we speak about Medicaid and eligibility rules, I've been saying you can only have $2,000, you can only have $2,000, and that's true, but there are some exempt resources, or what I like to refer to as non-countable assets. So that will be a house, a car if you drive, a prepaid funeral or burial, an ABLE account, and you can have $2,000 in your name. And what we mean by that is checking accounts, savings bonds, things that have your name directly on them. The total of all those resources must be below $2,000 at any given point. It's not just in the top of the month, it's whenever Medicaid decides to run a report. So, Illinois Department of Human Services, they've got a lot of departments. One I want to point out, and you might be aware of, I hope you are, is Bureau of Blind Services. So that's specialized services for individuals who are blind or visually impaired. This is in partnership with Division of Rehabilitation. So when you are looking for employment support or looking to stay in your home and, uh, and be independent in your home, you would file an application to Division of Rehabilitation. Well, if you're considered blind or visually impaired specifically, they will automatically divert that application to the Bureau of Blind Services to handle the case because they have more specialized case agents and it's just run a little bit differently. It's also funded a little differently from the federal government. And so, what they can offer is assistive technology, employment support, independent living goals, and oversight. So, I just wanted to give them a little bit of a shout out. Then there's healthcare and family services, which is the one that you're going to be most familiar with. This is your local Medicaid office, right? This is your state Medicaid agency, and it's done by county. And so within healthcare and family services, they oversee waivers. Like I said, it waives the cost to the individual. There are 9 different programs in Illinois. I'm going to talk about the most common ones and the ones that you're probably most familiar with and the differences between them. But there are 9 different waiver programs in Illinois. There is a traumatic brain injury one, there's an assistive technology one, there's one specifically for uh, individuals who have been diagnosed with AIDS or HIV. There is the intellectual and developmental disabilities waiver, also known as PUNS. And then there's the Home Services Program waiver. So there's lots of different programs out there, and you can qualify under multiple different waiver programs, but they're going to file your case under the one that makes the most sense for you personally. So what I mean by that is that you're eligible for whatever waiver program is going to give you the most support. And so we have to leave it up to healthcare and family services to kind of help you navigate that system. But also under healthcare and family services, there's SNAP or Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. A lot of people just call it food stamps, but food stamps kind of has a negative connotation, so we call it SNAP here in Illinois. And that provides cash benefits to a prepaid card so you can purchase groceries and food and beverages in grocery stores. They can also be used at wholesalers like Sam's Club or Costco. A lot of people don't know that, but that's a pretty cool thing. Also under healthcare and family services, there's Medicare savings programs. So if you're an individual who's on Social Security disability, then 2 years later you're getting access to Medicare, but you're considered low income or no income or no earned income, then you may qualify for a Medicare savings program, which means that the state of Illinois is going to cover the cost of your Part B premium. So with Medicare, just really quick oversight, Part A is what covers hospitals. It's usually free for almost almost everyone, unless you're really high net worth in a different, totally different tax bracket. Probably a tax bracket I'll never see personally. That, that's besides the point. And then there's so A covers hospitals, B covers doctors and specialists and testing, and Part B for Medicare has a cost of $203 a month. And usually that's withheld from your Social Security payment. But if you're considered low income, meaning you have total income of less than, $1,690 a month, you're going to qualify for the Medicare Savings Program, which means the state is going to pay the $203 a month for you. So it's a really nice program. And then there's also cash benefits. This is a very tough program to access, mostly because it's intended for temporary assistance for needy families. It's for individuals who are facing homelessness. And so it's a limited benefit and it's not a long-term benefit. It's there to solve a problem in crisis. But just so you know that exists. So then, as we move along, so we talk about waivers. Waivers are a huge topic of discussion, and I was asked specifically by Abby to talk about these because it's really hard to wade through the information, and what's working for a friend of yours for their child may not be working for yours, or you may not be eligible for that type of waiver. So I wanted to walk you through the difference between the two most common ones that this population is likely to access. So, waivers. All waivers exist to provide a service, right? So that the individual with the disability can remain in their home instead of a nursing facility. That's the actual definition. That's what they're looking for when they look to see if you're eligible for this type of waiver. And why is that? Like, why is a nursing home even in consideration? This person is 21 years old. Of course, they're not, eligible for a nursing home, or a nursing facility. It's because individuals who need a certain level of support, uh, the cost is very high for that. And so if they don't have family members to take care of them, they don't have the supports built in, instead of this population or our population becoming homeless, they have resorted to putting them in nursing homes where they really don't belong. But that costs the state and the federal government a ton of money. I mean, a ton, over $100,000 a year per person to support them in a nursing facility. Whereas if you're living at home and we can bring in the support, so a personal support worker or set you up in a day program or residentially in the community, then the cost to the federal government and the state is way less expensive. So they'd rather provide the waiver services just for budget reasons. And it's just a better quality of life. I'm 35. I can't really imagine living in a nursing facility at this point. That's just not suitable. And so that's why in part why these waivers were created, just so you have some background. So PD waiver, P standing for personal, D standing for disability. PD waiver, also known as Home Services Program. So the Home Services Program is overseen by the Department of Human Services, just like all of these things are. But more specifically, the PD waiver accommodates all disability types. So it's persons with disabilities. It accommodates all the different disability types. So specifically, deaf-blind, as long as you're considered quote unquote severe and you have a long-term disability, meaning it's going to last more than 12 months. The funding is budgeted monthly, meaning that you'll have a budget for service allocated each month to use, and they figure out that number based on your individual need. So you'll actually have a caseworker come into the home and complete an assessment called Determination of Need, or what we call a DON assessment. And they're going to assess your ability to function in your home or handle your activities of daily living. So eating, bathing, toileting, transferring, budgeting, self-awareness. So you're going to ask a series of questions, see how you navigate your own home, and then your need to pay best based on how high or low you score. They're going to say, okay, this is the type of budget this individual needs to remain at home and have the appropriate supports to remain there. So in order to qualify for this particular waiver or program, you must have been considered disabled and filed the application for that, for this not for Social Security, but filed an application for the home services program prior to the age of 60. If you are over age of 60, then there is a different style of waiver for you. It's one of the 9 that I mentioned earlier, and that is for the aging population. So it's actually overseen by a different department. And so I'm not going to focus on that tonight, but if you have other questions about a waiver for individuals over 60, please feel free to ask or send me an email directly. Happy to provide more info. But for this particular one, the home services program, because of the nature of the type of funding that it's for, it does not provide funding to live in the community. This waiver is specifically to bring supports into your own home or your family's home in order to make sure you are safe and receiving the care that you need. And so a DHS caseworker oversees the case as part of home services program. What's also interesting about HSP or home services program is that the person with the disability, as long as they're an independent, meaning someone doesn't have guardianship or conservatorship of them, is that you're the boss. So, as you should be, you get to hire, you get to direct, and you get to fire, if needed, your personal support workers. And you get to manage your schedule as it works for you. So, if you need someone to be there in the morning, if you need someone there for medication management, you are managing and conducting your own home services program waiver. Now, if you're unable to, you can elect somebody to help you with that, a family member or an outside agency. So that's what's kind of interesting about the home services program. Mostly why this one works for our population of deafblind is because it offers a larger budget. Okay, so the budget for this can be typically around $5,000 a month. I've seen it go as high as $10,000 a month for support and access. So then we compare that to puns, which everyone in Illinois, that's what we call it, puns funding. Puns is just the wait list, but that's really a technicality. We all call it this, but puns, it's what it really is it's the Illinois Medicaid Home and Community-Based Services Waiver. And PUN stands for prioritization for urgency of needed services, because when this program was originally developed way back when, it was based on your need for services. But because we have such a large population here in Illinois, particularly in the Chicagoland area, this wait list was flooded with names, flooded with individuals. And so it went from selecting individuals from the list based on their need to just making sure they get selected within 5 years of being placed onto it. So this has transformed as the need has gone up. So PUNS is the wait list to access the waiver. What's specific about home and community-based services waiver, or PUNS, is that it only exists to accommodate individuals who are intellectually or developmentally disabled. And so you have to have an IQ 70 or below. And if you don't have an IQ of 70 or below, meaning your IQ is at 75 or even 80, you have to prove that you have an associated disability like autism spectrum disorder, cerebral palsy, or something that is affecting your cognitive state. So PUNS doesn't really always work for our population of deafblind, and maybe sometimes it does. But you also have to prove that you were had become intellectually or developmentally disabled prior to the age of 22. So you'd need to do that with medical records, letters of support from your physicians, etc. Funding for this program is different from home services program. So funding is budgeted monthly and it's tied to the SSI maximum. So what does that mean? It means that the budget for home and community-based services is three times $994. So we're looking at about $2,900 a month for this budget for home and community-based services. So can be drastically different than what would potentially be eligible for home services program based on your need. What's interesting about this waiver, though, is that it can switch. So it can go from home and community-based services where you're bringing supports into your home or, like I said, in a day program or something of that nature, to switching to residential. So this is the only waiver really that is providing residential funding, and that's community integrated living arrangement. So the home and community-based services waiver is what will cover the cost of an individual to live in a group home or an intermittent group home, meaning that they're more independent, but they do need a level of support. So who oversees this? It's an independent service coordinator. So it's an agency. There's multiple agencies around Illinois. The two most popular in this area are going to be CAU, Community Alternatives Unlimited, or Service Inc. And they oversee the access, eligibility, and monitoring of this waiver. All right. So let's move on to useful tool for government benefit maintenance. So I've just kind of provided you with, I know, a lot of information, and I apologize for that because I know it can be rather overwhelming to receive all this info at one time. And something that particularly might be sticking out in your minds is going, how in the world am I going to keep assets, or my total, cash basically below $2,000 if Social Security disability is going to pay me $2,500 a month or $1,800 a month? It can be kind of difficult to keep that asset limit straight for your Medicaid eligibility. And so what came along to solve for that is the ABLE account. And the ABLE account is a really incredible tool. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. I go all around the country talking about ABLE accounts, but I'm just going to give you the highlights for this evening, so I don't kidnap you all night long. But the ABLE Act, the ABLE Act, basically what it did is it amended a section of the IRS code. And what it did is it created a tax-free savings account for individuals with disabilities. And why is that important? Because it allows an individual and their families to put money aside for now or for the future. And why that's different than a regular checking or savings account is that money going into an ABLE is not considered a countable asset. Okay, it's an exempt resource, meaning that it's not going to supplement, it's not going to displace or replace any of the government benefits that you work so hard to capture. And so that's why ABLE Act was so cool. And if you're familiar with a 529, which is a college savings account, an ABLE is just a 529A. So it has very similar rules to that type of account. Let's see. So the basics. ABLE stands for Achieving a Better Life Experience. It is truly a tax-free savings account, and it has tax-free distributions as long as the account is being used for what we call qualified disability expenses. And it's a lot easier for me to tell you what's not considered a qualified disability expense than to run you through a list of what is. So here's how I'll tell you. If you're wondering if you can spend money out of an ABLE on a certain expense or certain item or experience, ask yourself the question, Does it make my life better if you're the person with the disability, or does it make my loved one's life better? If the answer is yes, then you can spend it out of the ABLE. What you shouldn't use ABLE for is for gambling, purchasing illicit drugs, and purchasing things or paying out expenses for someone who isn't the person with the disability. Okay? Those are like the three things you shouldn't be using ABLE for. You can only have one ABLE account per person. And in order to be considered a qualified person, your onset of your disability had to have occurred prior to the age of 46. So this used to be 26, so it went up this year, which is great, and hopefully it keeps going up. So, some things about ABLE, because like I said, it's one of my favorite things to talk about, and it's a really awesome tool to keep your asset limit safe and in a comfortable place so you're not displacing Medicaid in particular. But it does have some limitations, but ABLE, you can put up to $20,000 per year into an ABLE account. So that's calendar year, January through all the way through December. Anyone can contribute to an individual's ABLE account. Grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, friends of the family, the person with the disability, but the total of the contributions in a year cannot exceed 20,000 unless the ABLE account owner, so the person with the disability, is working. If you're working, you can contribute an additional $15,560 into the ABLE account per year, provided that you've earned that much. So that's over and above the 20,000. So if you only earned 8,000 in a year, your additional contribution could only be up to $8,000. So some things and tricky things you need to know about ABLE is that if this account is funded over $100,000, if you're on SSI, which remember is a needs-based Social Security benefit, your SSI income will be suspended until this account is lower than $100,000. Okay. And then the other thing with the ABLE is that if you're on Medicaid and you're on a Medicaid waiver, remember it's waiving the cost to you for service. So the state of Illinois, they're keeping a tab. They're running a long invoice about all the things that they've spent for your care and your support. And from the time that this account gets opened, once you pass away, technically, the state of Illinois can recover the costs of what they've spent on you from whatever's in your ABLE account. So we call that Medicaid recovery. Oftentimes it's called a clawback or a payback. And what's nice about living in the state of Illinois, I know there's not a lot, or sometimes it feels like there's not a lot. What a nice thing is the state of Illinois has, and specifically the treasurer, Mike Frericks, has come forward and said, we are not clawing back money out of our constituents' ABLE accounts in Illinois unless the federal government requires us to. So there's a little bit less of a risk surrounding an Illinois ABLE versus other states that most certainly might do a Medicaid recovery. So I've talked a lot about different accounts and different types of benefits. So we created a chart of which account or which government benefit to use and when, what limitations does it have? Is it taxable? What's it used for? I won't run through this whole chart just in the interest of time, and I want to answer any questions that might be out there. But if you're interested in a copy of this chart, please let us know. We'll be happy to email it over to you, or we can get it over to Abby and Michelle, and they can distribute it. It's fine. It's branded for Protected Tomorrows and whatnot. So if you're interested in having a copy of this, please let us know. So who needs to know all this information that I just shared with you? It's besides yourselves, is all the people that are working to support the person with the disability, whether that's yourself or it's your loved one or family member, whomever. the person that we're always planning for is in the middle. So the person with the disability. And we form what we call a dream team around them. And so it's a giant circle of all types of different individuals who provide different levels of support. I kind of break it into two categories, and I say, there are care people and there are money people. So when I think about as I age and lose capacity, I want to make sure that when that does happen or starts to happen, I've appointed somebody who I trust to help manage my financial affairs. And so for me, that would be my oldest, besides my husband, of course, but it would be my oldest brother, Mark. And why? Because my oldest brother, he's 10 years older than me. He's got 10 more years of experience, but also he's a stockbroker and he's a financial planner. So he's pretty good with money. And then as far as my care goes, I'm going to appoint different people for different things. Making medical decisions, I don't really want to leave that up to my middle brother because he's a lot like me, and sometimes we have trouble making important decisions. And I think we're also too empathetic to be able to say, pull the plug or, something less and more, tasteful. Uh, but I know I could trust my closest girl cousins to make those decisions in the best effort of me. And of course, my husband would be number one, but if in case he's losing capacity as well, we need people around us to trust. And that's just an individual example, but there's all these people around that can provide the support. It doesn't have to be one person, is the point. You're building a team around your loved one or yourself, and to make sure that your life goes on, and life is hard and life is messy. But if you have the right support system, they're there to help lift you up when you're falling down or need help making positive or negative decisions in your life. So that's the dream team. So on our website, you do have access to this. I've mentioned my website, our website earlier, is that it's called My Special Life. And this is part of like step 5 in our 8-step process, but document the wonder is really important. So this is free. What you need to do is go onto our website and create a login through the client portal. All we ask for is your name and your email address, and then you'll have a free account on our website. And already pre-uploaded to that account will be a copy of this document, and it's called My Special Life, and it's a fillable PDF. So hopefully accessible to our population here. And what you'll do is you'll start writing down or typing or talk to text or however you like to manage things. Start writing down the important things. Who are your dream team members? Who are your doctors? Who are your family members? What are the medications you're taking? Where do you live? And then there's all the small things. What are your favorite foods? What are your likes? What are your dislikes? Or what are your loved ones, preferences for these things? And start writing it down. It's a huge document. I think it's 96 pages. Dave, correct me if I'm wrong there. It's really big. And so by no means do we expect you to get off of this call tonight, download a copy and fill it all out. It takes time. And perhaps you haven't come up to some of the barriers or some of the decisions that you would need to document in this document yet, based on your age or just life experience. But it's there, it's free, it's for your use. And the purpose of it is if you're the caretaker, or you're the main source of support, all the things probably live in your head, right? You know everything there is to know about your loved one, especially if you're caring for them. And so if something happens to you, how's anybody going to extract that information from your brain? We can't. So start writing it down. That's my homework for you. So where do you begin with all of this and some of this information that we provided? Like I mentioned, we have our website. Please access it. There's lots of free resources, lots of tutorials. This presentation has been recorded, so you can watch it over again, and it'll be made accessible for that purpose. And I'd like to, thank Illinois Deaf and Blind Project for doing that for us because they have the technology to do so, and I'm very grateful for that. And but what we can offer you at Protected Tomorrows is we offer a monthly webinar on different disability related topics. And we offer workshops, we have online tutorials and tools and links to resources. So these are all free things and options to help you make progress in your education at the very least. And with our parent university, like I mentioned, we have lots of different topics, but upcoming in February, so on February 12th, it's not that far away, is we're going to be covering estate planning. And so if that's something that you've considered or something you'd like to have more information about, please register for our parent university class. You can do that on our website, or maybe you already are registered. And we're going to have two attorneys on talking about estate planning, the importance of the different types of documents that there are, and what type of specialized planning you need to do for yourself or for your loved one. So, if you're interested in joining us for those, and maybe you don't want to see all 12 of them, maybe you're only interested in a couple topics, go ahead and register. It'll register you for all of them, but you can just skip over what you don't want to attend or you don't want to rewatch, and that if that's your prerogative. And then just last but not least, thanks for joining us. And I believe there's going to be a final poll that is launched by our lovely Abby and Michelle here. And then I'll take any questions that may have popped up. Absolutely. And if it's a personal question that you maybe don't want to ask in front of a group, then please feel free to email me directly. We're happy to field any questions that you maybe don't want public.
Question from Michelle. Can you qualify for more than one waiver?
Currently in Illinois, you can't qualify for double waiver funding. They're going to put you into the waiver program that makes the most sense for you. Meaning, if you need a larger budget for support, you're going to get put into the Persons with Disabilities waiver or home services program. But you can't have home services program and home and community-based services at the same time.
She says, okay, thank you. That makes sense.
Good.
Any other questions?
Q&A
Oh,
asking, can you use an ABLE account to pay for current medical expenses for a minor? It's a great question. So an ABLE account can be opened in the name of your child who is a minor. You can be added on as an authorized individual. And absolutely, an ABLE can be used for medical expenses. It's probably one of the number one things that people use their ABLE for besides paying rent. Hopefully that helped clarify that.
give another minute for questions. Jeanine, you also mentioned that we could share your email if anyone has any additional questions too.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure, no problem.